Good morning all, welcome to a Wednesday preview for racing at Uttoxeter this afternoon, where they've got 8 races. I know most people will be concentrating on Doncaster this afternoon and the surrounding furore now as to whether we're going to be letting pilot crowds in over the next few days or not. I don't know. It seems that today's going to be going ahead, whatever. But it would appear, I think some of the pilots perhaps for later in the month, like Warwick and Newmarket, might be on the back burner now. We'll wait and see what this government says, see what comes out later. Who knows? 8 races at Uttoxeter, tricky card, nothing strong, maybe one. 1:30. The first 2 races, the 1:30 and the 2 o'clock, are 2 divisions of a 0 to 100 handicap hurdle that got divided up, and still 10 horses didn't get a run, which shows you the demand for these races at the moment, really. The interesting ones, well, there would have been an interesting one, I think, in the shape of Breffney Boy, who I've mentioned one or two times now, and the money came pouring in for him yesterday. 10's down to about 7 to 2, and this morning he's a non-runner with an abscess. So, with the gamble out the way, who is going to win this? There's a lot of horses in these first 2 races that are trying something new for the first time, whether it be tongue ties, some form of headgear, which sort of tells you plenty, really. Employer isn't. I sort of half expected Employer to be perhaps in some sort of headgear, which would at least explain away the improvement if he wins today. He's had 3 runs, Employer. He's been down the field every time. He hasn't shown a fat lot. And he's going to be 3-1 favourite for this, because basically he's on a mark that's almost farcical. A mark of 81 today. Well, when you consider that, if you sort of wind the clock back just over 12 months, in May 2019, he was on a flat mark of 83, and he's £2 lower than that today. Doesn't take a genius to work out that he's extremely well handicapped, and he could pick this lot up and drop them. But as I say, he's shown next to nothing. So if there'd been some sort of headgear on, there's your reason for your explanation, but I'm struggle to see it. I don't know. I mean, if he could win 20 minutes, he could finish tailed off again, but on what he's shown so far, 3 runs around here, all over 2 mile. It's interesting that all 3 runs have been here as well, sort of getting used to the hurdles, if you sort of see what I mean, rather than taking him to Stratford or even up to Perth, somewhere like that. All 3 runs have been at Uttoxeter to get him used to the hurdles. It's there, isn't it? It's there for all to see. But as I say, if he wins, then the stewards need to be having a word, to say the least. I'll make the point as well that Employer, despite all this ridiculously low mark today, is only 1 from 28 all codes. It's even if today is the day for him, he's hardly that strike rate hardly impels you to get involved at 3-1. You've got a couple of others similar. No Thanks, Ollie Murphy's. He's shown bits and pieces of form last couple of runs, and he did look like the sort that will be sort of go on when he's handicapped, and he's on a fair mark on his flat form, mark of 97. He was low 60s on the flat, so that's fair enough. It gives him something to work off. Ollie Murphy, I still find a hard yard to read. Still find him incredibly hard to read. He had all those winners on those first couple of days, and then since then it's been the winners have been very sporadic. He's had one out of the last 10, and some on 3 or 4 of them really poorly. It's just one of these yards, when he has a winner, I'm more often than not on it. Giga White is back over hurdles, and that probably looks a smart thing. I'm not really sure he took to fences. He's certainly not bred for fences. But whether he's capable of winning these days or not, I don't know. I've ended up going again, he says, with Rocket Ronnie, giving him another chance, because I fancied him a bit at Newton Abbot last week, and basically he unshipped at the first. A little bit unsighted, but and that's the second time he's unshipped at Newton Abbot in this summer. So whether he's sort of fallen out of love with those hurdles or not, I don't know. He's got similar ones to cope with here, which is a bit of a worry. In between, the run at Stratford when he was 5th to Glendon wasn't a bad one. I thought that run sort of indicated he might be on the way back. Adrian Wintle is in good form. He's had a few winners in the last 3 weeks, all decent prices. Rishi Patrick on board in one of these conditional races is never a bad thing, and he's on a winning mark. So there was enough there for me to think at 25s I might have a little bit each way on Rocket Ronnie. But as I say, it's a race that's at the mercy of employer if he's wound up and today's the day. The 2 o'clock is the second division of it, which looks a little bit more, I wouldn't say easier to solve. Easy is not the word, but you know, the form's a bit more on the table. Iconic Hero takes a drop in grade back over hurdles for Dan Skelton. He's hard to win with though, and 9-2 doesn't make a fat lot of appeal, I have to say. You've got an interesting one in Just Marvin, who's definitely got a race in him, but his finishing efforts have been weak. Last year, a couple of times he travelled like the best horse in his races and didn't finish the job off. If Alex Hales has toughened him up a little bit, there's definitely, and if they can bring him late, I think might be the key. And you want to see some money. The fact he's been off for a while doesn't really bother me because Alex can get him ready. So I think if there's a bit of money for Just Marvin, and there is some pace in this, that makes him quite interesting. Canisari's been well backed. He's dropped from a mark of 111 to 85 in fairly shortish sort of time. It was 106 at the turn of the year. There's not a lot there, you know, so far, but there's no doubt he's well handicapped on the best of his novice and maiden hurdle form. And you've got the likes of Enchant Me as well, another Ollie Murphy one that's only had 4 starts, not really shown a fat lot yet, but there's bound to be improvement to come. Tingway in the Tail won round here last year when he beat Just Marvin, actually, and at the weights today there's not a lot between them again. He shaped okay at Stratford a couple of weeks ago, and I think he'll appreciate the return to Uttoxeter, so he's got a chance. And the other moderately interesting one I thought at a price, at a big price, was Highland Bobby, who's left Ollie Murphy and has joined Rob Summers. Now, he was out of his depth at Stratford last time in a Class 4 handicap, but even there he showed just enough to think that this going to be a race in him. Interestingly, there was a winner last week at Uttoxeter that Quivy Lock that had left Ollie Murphy's and supposedly gone to a lesser yard, and that wasn't the first one that's run well that's left Ollie's and then gone to a different yard and has run well next time out. Cesar de Gouet as well at Bangor ran his best race for a long time on his first run for a different yard. I can't remember, I want to say Sarah Ender, but I don't think it was. But it was, again, to a supposed smaller yard. So you've had a couple of these that have gone from all these 2 smaller yards and have improved for it. Highland Bobby might be another. 25-1. Again, it's my sort of a price. He's on a mark that he can definitely do some damage off. If you go back to November last year over course and distance, he was 3rd to Battle of the Somme. That was in softer ground. There is supposedly a bit of rain arriving at Uttoxeter late morning into the early afternoon. How much? I don't know. There's a weather front coming over and it does weaken, but a drop of rain wouldn't harm his chances, that's for sure. So he's quite interesting as well, I thought, at a bigger price. 230 is a maiden hurdle, and a good maiden hurdle as well. Favourites drifted like a barge. Minella Encore, who's left Willie Mullins and has gone to Dr. Newlands. It's a strange one because, generally speaking, Minella Encore was moderately progressive throughout last winter. 3 runs, and although he didn't win, they weren't bad efforts by any means, and it's form that sort of gives him a very good chance here. But he has drifted. Initially, 1 or 2 of the betting forecasts yesterday were putting him in at odds on, and he's now 9-4, so that'd have to be a concern. And there are alternatives, not least Lash Royal, who is now favourite, having been backed in from about 4-1. He's a full brother to Honeysuckle, and my good friend Mr. DeLoggy spotted him on his bumper run and pointed out the connections did something very similar with another horse a couple of seasons ago. Won with him first time up in a bumper at a decent price, and he was well back that day, travelled well, found plenty for pressure despite being a bit green. So I'm not entirely surprised that he's been backed into favouritism. 13-8. I mean, you can argue 13-8 for a horse that's not jumped a fencing public, a hurdling public short enough. And there are other alternatives. Copper Coin, if Copper Coin could repeat his run at Aintree last October when he finished 4th to Imperial Alcazar, that form's worked out okay. Coconut Splash was second that day. He came out and won a little race at Weatherby, and third was Big Bad Bear, and he's now rated 130 plus up north. So that's form that would give Copper Coin a chance as well. And Connections, Michael Schoonermore's landed a couple of touches already this summer, so he's interesting too. I think with the price having already gone on Last Royal and I'm not on, it's probably going to be a race I watch now rather than get involved in. But if Copper Coin continues to sort of drift out to a sort of 7-8 to 1, then I could see myself getting involved. There's some others in here as well that you need to sort of make notes of. They won't be winning today, but that's a Busy Street who's useful on the flat. I think when he goes handicapping, he needs a bit more experience, and when he goes handicapping, he'll be interesting. Cafe Macchiato as well, Tim Vaughan's winner in the French provinces. He'll be one for handicaps. And right down the bottom as well, here Zero to Hero, who caught the eye a couple of times last year at Plumpton and Taunton, and then was probably going to get placed at Huntingdon when he tipped up. He's had a recent run in France to sort of blow the cobwebs away. He won't be winning today, but when he goes back to handicaps, he'll be moderately interesting as well, Zero to Hero. So there's others to watch. I think it might be a watching race. 305 is a novice's chase. Now then. Is Longhouse Sale worth a mark of a 145? It's a summer 145, that's for certain. The moment, and if that rain does come in any measurable amount at Uttoxeter and turns the ground even a little bit softer, I will be laying Longhouse Sale for sure. He's going, I don't think he wants soft ground in that. I don't think he wants any cut at all. I think he wants genuine top of the ground. He's going up half a mile in trip today. That in itself is less of a worry if the rain doesn't come, but I just question what his form's worth. The Stratford win was where I think he's at. I think he's around about 135 or 138. I think that's where he is. I think the win over Pacify last time, the handicappers overrated that a little bit. Time to Chill looked very much in need of the run. Leap Away pulled up after a early mistake. He lost part of the tack, and that was his race over. And Pacify, who I'm not convinced yet is a chaser. Still not quite convinced it's really his thing. And with that, I'm sort of against Longhouse Sale, and to a lesser extent as well, I'm against the Butcher Said, who basically had a round to himself at Southwell, and he'll have more of a race here. It was only a 3-horse race at Southwell, and one of them was Sussex Road, and his other main opponent didn't jump very well at all, so he was basically left with a solo. It's not like you've got nothing against him. Ballyholme's fit and is improving. He will like the trip. I think this drop back to 2-4 is absolutely ideal, and the yard are going well. You've got Captain Tommy, who was mid 130s himself over hurdles, and it wasn't a dreadful first effort over Newton Abbott, and he needed that run. He'll come on for it, and Winter Getaway, who's got Chaser written all over him this year. So you've got 3 against the front 2, and the temptation is to lay the front 2 at really short prices, basically laying them at about 5 on the pair, and have 3 running for me. I think that's how I'm probably going to play that. But if the rain does come, I'll be more against Longhouse Sale, I think. But it's if it comes, it's a weather watch. 335, probably with Ask Paddington here. I think the market's got it about right. The front 3 are the 3 that should be there, and they're probably in the right order. I was very impressed with Ask Paddington at Sedgefield. He canted clear from that lot. This is harder, and the handicap has put him up 12. But my word, that was his first run for Tristan Davidson, and I'm absolutely sure there's more to come. So I think I'm with Ask Paddington here. Although there are, it wouldn't be the biggest surprise if Elise's improved plenty on first run for Fergal O'Brien. It wasn't really going anywhere for Alan King. It's not like he wasn't improving for him. So they might need to eke a bit more out. Handicappers give him a drop of 3, but they might need a little bit more out of him. The clock he's ticking is just disappointing. He just doesn't win races, I'm afraid. So I'm afraid I'm against him now. And you've got Presence of Mind, who's probably got plenty more to come after having just had the 3 runs. So again, an interesting race, but I'm not going to give up on Ash Paddington just yet, despite a £12 rise. I think he'll probably win again. 410's a handicap chase, 3 mile 2. Couple of interesting ones here. My good lady would like to point out the chances of Portway Flyer, who's 12 years old now, but we haven't seen much of Portway Flyer in recent times. In fact, we've only seen him once in the last 4 years getting on for, and that was last October at Exeter. When he ran a cracker, he kept trying all the way to the line against Golden Sunrise. That was over 3 mile. I have a slight question mark whether another quarter of a mile is really what Portway Flyer wants, but the mark's fair enough, and he can certainly go well after an absence, and conditions should be fine for him. So he's got plenty going for him at 18 to 1. As I say, I just question whether 3 mile 2 might just send the stamina strings twanging a bit, and we'll see. The 2 at the top are probably the 2 to beat. King's Temptation, the 3 at the top. King's Temptation, Monty's Award, Sir Robbie, all of him come in here in decent form after good runs. A couple of them after wins. Sir Robbie, put him in at 5 to 2. If you can, I'm sure you'll get bigger than that in running, because he was out the back at Uttoxeter fairly early, and his jumping was sticky. I think it wasn't bad, but he wasn't fluent at them like the other 3 were, and eventually his stamina kicked in late as 1 or 2 others started to fade, and he was able to throw down a challenge in the latter stages. But I'm sure you'll get bigger than 5 to 2 if you fancy him in running. I can see him trading twice that after a couple of fences. So if you fancy Sir Robbie and you can hang on, then do so. The interesting one for me is right down the bottom, High Council, who's been ridden last 6 starts by Alexander Thorne. Now Richard Johnson takes over, 10 stone 1. There was, again, he's had a couple of runs in August to get himself fit, and there was enough in the run last time over this course and distance to suggest he might just be starting to be just be on the way back. He sort of lost his position mid-race, then made some headway on the bridle and looked like he might take a bit of a hand in it before he weakened 3 out and just finished well beaten. But I think, as I say, I think he's needed those runs to get him fit. He's now on a mark of 100. That's only £3 higher than when he last won at Warwick in January. A drop of rain would certainly help his chances as well. 20 to 1, I think he's interesting. Enough for me to get involved. Anyway, I shall have a little each way bet. And I better quickly look at this 445. We're running out of time a little bit. Fort Gabriel, this is another handicap chase, this time over 2 mile 4. Fort Gabriel's moderately interesting because I'm sure they'll try forcing tactics with him here. He was a bit disappointing at Stratford. I thought he'd go a bit better than that, but he never really got loose on the lead, which I thought he might do. And it was a bit of a middling effort. He's back over fences today. The question is whether he gets an easy lead, because there is a couple in here that might take him on for it. Vinny the Hoddy can pull hard. He's not an easy one to catch right, Vinny the Hoddy. There is definitely some ability there, but he's not showing it yet. He's not improving, and he went out a bit quick for me last time again. If he pulls hard, they'll surely try to get him settled in behind Fort Gabriel rather than take him on. And Gettysburg Address, we haven't seen Gettysburg Address for best part, well over a year and a half now, but he used to lead in his races as well, or race prominently. So again, the question is there, it's to sort of watch the market. If Gettysburg Address is 6 out to 12, then he might be having a run round, but if he's 6 into 3, then you might see him firing him out in front. So with that, I'm sort of holding fire a little bit on Fort Gabriel at the moment, but if he looks like he's lining up on his own front, that makes him a bit more interesting. When all is said and done, though, I do think Tricky Customer's going to win this. I think it will fall his way. He's been crying out for 2.5. He won at Market Raisin in July when they went a million miles an hour up front. He and Tim Rocco, that finished first and second, were way out the back early, and they both sort of made their ground together. And as the pace collapsed, they came through to finish 1-2. That didn't happen last time. It was a smaller field. They didn't go a million miles an hour, and he found himself getting outpaced and then staying on really from the last. Only got beaten 2 lengths there. That was over 2-1. He's crying out for 2-4 again. I think he's probably one of the better bets on the card. Tricky Customer. When say if you take the race as is now, I think he's definitely the one in that race to beat. But as I say, Fort Gabriel will be interesting if he's lining up on his own at the front. I might have a saver on him, but Tricky Customer for me. Right, there we go. It's been 20 minutes. Time is up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. There'll be some more of these a bit later on in the week, all being well, and early into next week, because there's more jumps coming up. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.